Beneath the 600 meters of ice below me is the most important point of all, the point at which the ice meets the ocean water.
I think there was probably something significant that happened at in the last ice age. Earth's climate has changed, and even where the poles are.
Deep beneath the Antarctic ice sheets, the weirdest things undoubtedly lie as explorers continually return with tales of bizarre things which have been discovered. But it gets even more intriguing. Indeed, previous research holds a red flag to life existing beneath these cold, dark regions. But wait for it. New studies revealed by Elon Musk change everything scientists previously thought, causing scales to fall from our eyes. This is a tale of impossible discoveries made in the Arctic which you wouldn't want to miss. What did Elon Musk find? How does it affect the world of science? Keep watching to find out. The Antarctic ice sheet is the largest single mass of ice on Earth, covering about 98% of the Antarctic continent, reaching an area of almost 5.3 million square miles. It encompasses 6.3 million square miles of ice, equivalent to approximately 61% of Earth's freshwater. Despite its vast expanse, not much is known about this region. Trust us, you wouldn't dare to imagine what lurks underneath its thick ice sheets. Before now, it has been impossible to make any attempts to study the region, but thanks to the United States Navy submarine, things are starting to change as the Navy soon made the region a hotspot to test the military potential of nuclear submarines. In 1958, they etched their place in history by becoming the first to reach the North Pole, using nuclear-powered submarines and venturing beneath the ice. Imagine the vast underwater world they had to navigate through. Because of this mission, researchers can now dream of a day when this region will be thoroughly studied like an open book. Thanks to these submarines again, there is no access to know the region better as a few explorations have begun already. You'll be shocked at how these few explorations have added to knowledge. We have the Navy submarine to thank for the Southern Ocean map, as the map shows the major features of the Southern Ocean, including the Antarctic Peninsula, the Ross Sea, the Weddell Sea, and the Scotia Sea. It also shows the major islands in the Southern Ocean, such as South Georgia, the South Sandwich Islands, and the Kerguelen Islands. With this map, many discoveries have been made that otherwise would not have been possible. One such discovery is the Factorian Deep. This is the deepest point in the Southern Ocean, located at 24,383 feet, 7,432 meters, below sea level. It is located in the South Sandwich Trench, an underwater canyon that spans roughly 600 miles, 965 kilometers, of the seafloor between South America and Antarctica. The Factorian Deep was discovered in 2019 by American explorer and entrepreneur Victor Vescovo as part of his 5 Deeps expedition to map the deepest points of the world's 5 oceans. On this mission, Vescovo personally piloted a submersible named Limiting Factor to the bottom of the Factorian Deep, where he found that the water temperature was a frigid 28.0 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 2.2 degrees Celsius. The revelation was clear. The Factorian Deep is a very harsh environment, suggesting very little life to survive at such depths. However, scientists have found something shocking: a few strange and unusual creatures living in the Factorian Deep, including a type of jellyfish that is bioluminescent, producing its light. The discovery has become a bubble buster of old scientific understanding of the deep ocean, raising new questions about the evolution of life on Earth. But this is just the very beginning. In 2022, a team of scientists from New Zealand also shockingly discovered a hidden ecosystem beneath the Larsen ice shelf. The ecosystem was found 500 meters below the ice in a suspected estuary, hundreds of kilometers from the edge of the Ross ice shelf. But how did they do it? The scientists used a hot water drilling system to reach the underground chamber, after which they lowered a camera into the river below. To their amazement, hundreds of amphipods, small shrimp-like crustaceans, swarmed around the camera, giving them the shock of their lives. The amphipods were found to be living in a dark, cold, and still environment, which no one would have imagined was possible to support their survival, since the water temperature was about 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit or -2 degrees Celsius, and the oxygen levels were also very low. How was this possible? Scientists later concluded that the amphipods could survive in this harsh environment because they adapted to the low temperatures and low oxygen levels. And since they could also produce their food, they did not need sunlight to survive. Scientists and researchers are still studying this mystery, but they can provide some answers now. But the next set of discoveries would leave your jaws dropped. Trapped beneath ice. Scientific measurements show that the floating ice shelves cover an expanse of more than 1.5 million square kilometers off the Antarctic continental shelf. However, scientists have only been able to study the size of a tennis court out of this figure using 8 prior boreholes. But within these few studies, scary, bizarre, and unusual things have often been discovered, but nothing is more shocking than what you are about to see. It might be likened to discovering an impossible phenomenon in an impossible environment. The discovery was made by Dr. James Smith, a geologist at the British Antarctic Survey alongside his colleague, Dr. Hugh Griffiths. They had ventured this far to get seafloor sediments to research the history of floating shelves. This was even though it was southern summer. The study took them to a distance of about 160 miles from the open ocean, with the location being a 5-hour flight from the closest outpost in Antarctica. The study had demanded that they drilled through 900 miles of ice in the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf, which sits on the southeastern Weddell Sea. From this description, you can almost guess how bad the conditions in this part of the Antarctic were. Scientifically, it is very clear that it is almost impossible to have any life surviving in conditions such as this. However, to the surprise of all, including the researchers, something very unexpected was discovered during this study, and the world of scientists is still unable to believe what they had found. They not only found life in such an unbearable natural habitat, but it was amusing to see that the life they had found was shockingly stationary. It was the first time something like this had ever happened. How did this happen in the first place? The daring ventures of James Smith were not without a price. He had to spend over 3 months under temperatures as low as sub-0 degrees, slept in a tent, and ate dehydrated food to access the seafloor sediments that happened to be right underneath over half a mile of ice. Both researchers must melt about 20 tons of snow to achieve this. They used to generate over 20,000 liters of hot water. They pour the hot water through a pipe lowered down a borehole to reach their goal. Chipping away at the ice for over 20 hours, they finally broke the shell. Even after this, it wasn't yet time for their breakthrough. Nothing was found when they lowered their GoPro camera to the bottom of the ice to capture seafloor sediments. Trying over and over again, the results were the same, leaving them with nothing to show for over an hour. But here was the catch. Now, even though James Smith did not get the exact results he was looking for, a shocking discovery awaited him among those video recordings made by the camera. He discovered this unlikely finding when he looked through the footage later in the evening and found a boulder. However, this was not just any ordinary boulder, as it had life attached to it. On the boulder were stationary animals like sponges. The boulder also had attached to it potentially previously unknown species of animals. This discovery is indeed one big eye-opener. There is so much we still don't know about life under the ice shelves. And with just a fraction of studies made on this region, it is believed that there is likely more life out there like this one that we may not be aware of. This is against a backdrop that previous scientific research had concluded that the further away one goes from the open sea and sunlight, the narrower the possibility of the existence of life. This research conclusion posed 2 possibilities. Scientists are either wrong, or this boulder is an anomaly. Elon Musk, alongside other scientists, is still brainstorming on these options. According to Dr. Hugh Griffiths, this discovery is one of those fortunate accidents that pushes ideas in a different direction and shows us that Antarctic marine life is incredibly special and amazingly adapted to a frozen world. Now that this discovery has been made, it even raises more questions. Griffiths says, Our discovery raises so many more questions than it answers, such as, how did they get there? What are they eating? How long have they been there? How common are these boulders covered in life? Are these the same species as we see outside the ice shelf? Or are they new species? And what would happen to these communities if the ice shelf collapsed? Now let's uncover the truth. First, let's talk about how these organisms feed. Scientists make it clear that some sponges are indeed carnivorous. However, other species feed on filtered debris from the water. According to Christopher Ma, a marine biologist at the Smithsonian who did not participate in the research, the scenario wherein these trapped sponges are carnivorous would have made the headlines. However, we will stick to the fact that they feed on filtered debris from the water. It is not new to occasionally find animals wandering into these parts of the deep, but these animals at least have the opportunity to navigate and get food from outside sources. The same does not apply to the stationary life attached to the boulder. Instead of going to search for food, these life forms would rather need a system that supplies them with food consistently. This food would be in the form of marine snow. Marine snow refers to a shower of organic material falling from upper waters to the deep ocean. They are generated from the dead body parts of sea creatures. When these sea creatures decay after death, they are picked on by other animals, and with their debris falling to the bottom of the ocean, they become marine snow. For feeding these stationary animals, it turns out that the water current also has a big part to play. Fertile regions have been discovered between 390 to 930 miles away from the spot where the stationary animals were found. It has also been discovered that when marine snow falls, it does not descend vertically, but rather horizontally, making it easy to understand how food got to these stationary animals. To further explain this, Rich Mui, curator of invertebrate zoology and geology at the California Academy of Sciences, stated that marine snow has 7 miles to fall before getting to the bottom of the ocean. If this marine snow, being about 390 to 930 miles away, therefore falls horizontally, they can travel about 133 times the 7 miles to come to these trapped animals. Complex as it sounds, it turns out that organic materials seem to be traveling several miles to support the stationary animals on the boulder. Mui further explains that seawater becomes denser as it cools. It then moves to the ocean floor and later radiates outside the Antarctic. It is said that practically all current systems emanate from this current. But water radiating out of the Antarctic does not do so empty, as something is needed to fill the space left behind. As a result, the inflows will be carried over a distance of hundreds of kilometers, which can provide feeding support to the organisms trapped on the boulder. According to scientists, this method can also increase the number of microorganisms on the boulder, also introducing new specials. Judging from the lifespan of these microorganisms, they might have been there for a long time now, and would probably have increased over time. But then, it must be clear that all the mysteries cannot be completely resolved, as samples still need to be collected of these species to typically study them. This is another task that it's almost impossible without special actions, or perhaps a miracle. While this discovery is groundbreaking, Dr. Griffiths and his colleague go further to put forth a disturbing fact that threatens this discovery. As it turns out, there is bad news. But what is it? Let's talk about the danger that looms around this discovery of mysterious life. Amidst the joy of discovering what is indeed a mysterious life's existence under the shelves, experts are aware that danger looms over the life forms here. As the ice of these regions begins to melt due to global warming, what would happen to these Antarctic lives? According to scientists, if any of these massive ice shelves should melt, it can potentially wipe out a good portion of the life forms underneath these shelves. The danger is more tangible than ever. A good example of this is the Thwaites Glacier. The Thwaites Glacier is one of the most unstable glaciers in Antarctica, and it is considered to be a major contributor to sea level rise. The glacier is melting rapidly due to a combination of factors, including climate change, ocean warming, and changes in the bedrock beneath the glacier. If Thwaites Glacier were to collapse completely, it could cause sea levels to rise by as much as 2 feet, 61 centimeters. This would have a devastating impact on coastal communities around the world. Recently, it has been observed by underwater robots that the Thwaites Glacier is merely clinging to the seafloor using its fingernails. If it separates from the seafloor, it will likely melt faster than was initially predicted. Griffiths notes that with the threat of climate change and the eventual collapse of these ice shelves, time may be running out to study and protect these ecosystems. Subscribe to Beyond Discovery and see you in the next episode.